Okay, so at the beginning of the season, when Clarke ended up becoming Josephine, or Josephine in other words ended up taking over the body and mind of Clarke, I was like, okay, you know what, the acting for Eliza Taylor, that's pretty good, pretty solid, but it's gonna improve over time. It does need a little bit of improvement in order to get to the essence, or to capture the essence of Josephine, the one that we watched on episode 2. Like, this role was completely different. But over time though, I kinda got over that, it started really getting better, wasn't still the best until this week's episode, and this is what I love the most. Those final scenes of the episode, Clarke being Josephine while she is Clarke, being able to move from one character to the other at the very same moment, kind of give you all kinds of vibes all in one go, like one after the other. Let me rephrase that. I'm not the biggest fan of either of Nicolas Cage or John Travolta. I mean, I do like them in some roles, but I'm not their biggest fan. But one role, though, does stand out. No matter how many years do pass, whenever I watch that movie, those two roles do stand out. The roles that they played on Face Off. The shift. He's the cop, then he's the villain, then he's the cop again by the end of the movie. And the same thing applied to Nicolas Cage, being the villain, then being the cop. That was pretty solid, always been one of my favorites, but I gotta say the shift over here is way better, like you're moving back and forth all at the same time, repeatedly as well. But that being said though, welcome back guys to another one of my The 100 videos in my review of the 11th episode of the season, otherwise titled Ashes to Ashes. Now, a lot have been explained over here. I'm gonna start with the biggest highlight of the episode, like Diosa is dead, she is gone. I don't think she's dead, I don't think she's gone. I mean, the only thing that you could think of over here is some character that has been fleshed out so much so far and built up so much so far, she's most definitely actually not going to die off screen. So what's going on over here is Diosa is absent for a while and she's gonna make it back. And she's gonna make it back as well right out of that anomaly. Now another thing about Diosa, the situation with Diosa, is I do believe the anomaly kind of works differently for different people. We're gonna find that out later on. Maybe, now that she is familiar with the anomaly, Octavia is gonna try to go back in, try to save Diosa, or bring her back, or at the very least find out what happened to her, and she's probably gonna end up finding her. I've been planning to upload a video on the situation with Diosa, been having a lot of thoughts on that subject. One of the thoughts is that the anomaly works differently. It's not just the one function, not just showing you your past, kind of helping you redeem yourself, like what happened with Octavia, but there's also the possibility it works differently for different people, so there's the possibility that something else has been happening to Diosa, and we're gonna see her walk out, right out of that time anomaly, at some point before the end of this season. I'm thinking it's gonna be the final scene of the season. I'm thinking she's gonna walk out and she's gonna deliver a message, tell these people something that they don't know, and that's gonna be our cliffhanger all the way up until the next season airs. But there is actually a lot more though, because a lot has been revealed, a lot has been explained as well, like the motivations of Rikers on one hand, Clarke having been changed by this experience, that's another thing, even changed by Josephine, a surprise recurring guest star that we've only seen on season 3, recurring there as well, but yeah, that was pretty exciting as well. But the most important of these is our knowledge that Josephine is gone, the arc with Josephine is over. Now there's the fake Josephine, Clarke playing Josephine. Alright, let's go through all of it one by one. Now the episode starts with Maddie in that chair under the spell of the Dark Commander, but not really his full control. She still thinks and believes in the innocence of others, belonging to the group, yet she's partially advancing the Dark Commander's agenda. But him though, he's using her love for Clarke and her need for revenge to push her further, and he seems to succeed there. Tell me what I have to do. These are the last words we hear her say in that conversation she has with him. But that does tell us all about the cure. The cure is Clarke seeing Clarke, knowing that Clarke is alive. That's most definitely her cure. We do get to realize that at the very end of the episode, when she sees her, when she's thinking, "Are you Clarke?" and she tells her that she's not, spicing her response as well with the Josephine sarcasm. That was very bad because that brought the Dark Commander back to the surface. So yeah, anywhere from the majority to the entirety of this girl's cure is in finding out Clarke was saved, that she is still alive, and getting to talk to her. But next up though is we get the Bellamy and Clark second reunion, the less huggy one, the more spoken one. I know a lot of people want to see kisses all over and hearts flying in the air, but no, to be honest, this is way better. The friendship. I mean, just because they are married in real life, they are in love in real life, the actor and the actress, doesn't mean that they've got to fall in love on the TV series. And just because this is a TV series doesn't mean that the leads of the series have got to end up in a humping games relationship. That's not really necessary. I mean, that's the common trope, that's the annoyingly common trope. It is actually refreshing to see something doing it all differently, not going into that relationship territory. Like friendship between this guy and this gal is completely possible, just like the cases with, for example, Hawkeye and Black Widow in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But multiple times though throughout this episode we get an explanation of what happened to Josephine. She did sacrifice herself in order to save her people. She was afraid of what she knows about Clarke, like you're gonna kill my people, burn Sanctum down, and that's what she feared the most. And Clarke does realize it as well on this episode. That's another great change to Clarke, and all inflicted by Josephine. Like Josephine was right. This is going to end up being something like Mount Weather, and I definitely do not want that. And that's exactly where she decides to devise a different kind of plan, something different than what she's used to. That's the change that came to Clarke, the character development out of the Josephine arc. But let's stick with outside the fence before we move back in the fence to talk about Sanctum. So we've got Bellamy's stance from Octavia. It's kind of understandable. He's most definitely a little bit, maybe excessively harsh, but she kind of deserves it as well. I mean, at the very least, until he gets a full grasp, fully understands what went down with her, when she went into the Anomaly. The girl did undergo quite the quick but also solid redemption arc. But we know as well from the final moments of the episode that Bellamy kind of wants to forgive her, that he's starting to actually forgive her. She's been asking for his forgiveness throughout the entire episode. She's no longer the Octavia that we know, none of them really, not the first Octavia, not the latter Octavia. She's pretty much a mix of both, like the strength of the Octavia that we know from latter seasons, but she's also back to having that innocent feel to her, the kindness of the Octavia that we met on the very first season. But time to complain a little bit though, because the first time that Jordan discovered the footage of the first Josephine, early on in the events of a season, it did seem like Gabriel did know the code to the fence and to everything pretty much. But then over here he does state, I don't have the code, I couldn't lower down the shield if I wanted to. Seems the code has never been changed, by the way, evident also by the events of the premiere when Clarke used it. It is the same Legis code used everywhere. That was pretty much established early on in the events of the season. But we've got things though going to shit outside the fence because we've got the children of Gabriel turning against Gabriel, and he's got to explain it to Xavier's sister, tells them it was Eduardo that did it, that he killed them. They're not believing him, they're not even believing that Clarke is no longer Josephine, but she's rather someone else. And for the majority of the episode, Lila here is under that impression until she realizes, okay, this woman just spared me, she just couldn't be Josephine Lightborn. Now I'm not going to ramble on about the details of this part of the episode because in a nutshell, the highlight of this part was the Mount Weather bit, and I've already spoken about that early on, trying to save everything, everyone, and with the least losses, that's all about Clarke. And there's also the part about the redemption arc with Octavia and her talk with Bellamy, and that was part of the saving the day part with Bellamy, buying them time. But along the way though, there's also talk about the Dictator's Handbook that I pretty much spoke of at the beginning of the season. That was pretty much, and in a nutshell, what Gabriel there explains. They have made themselves into gods and angels, and they have done it in such a way that they worked it all out. And the final outcome will always be the supporters versus the non-supporters, the believers versus the non-believers. Now before I move on from the children of Gabriel and then back into Sanctum, the statement made by Bellamy, "You're my sister, but you're not my responsibility anymore." That's as opposed to telling her early this season that his sister died long ago. I do love how they used these words, kinda changed things from that episode. Like she wanted to hear that she is still his sister. She wanted to hear the opposite of the statement that he made early on this season. That's good writing, by the way. But yeah though, jumping into Sanctum, one of the most interesting parts about this episode was the arc with Echo and Riker, the entire conversation, the surprise guest appearance by none other than Nia, the queen of Asgada. Well, late and former queen, that is. Bit of a throwback to Season 3, and the fact that she tried to overthrow Lexa. That's a reminder of a lot of things, really. But yeah though, she tries to tell Riker, don't be me, don't end up being like me. this is a test of loyalty. Russell doesn't really care. You know, she tells him her story, how she became Echo, because Echo isn't really Echo, but she's rather the second Echo, the one who had to kill the first Echo in self-defense and to protect herself, becoming this person. She was just an innocent girl, and this, at the time, didn't seem like it was something that would ever be in the cards for her. In a way as well, it kind of parallels the situation with Octavia, because you look back at Octavia when she first started on this series, the first portion of her appearances on the series, and you're thinking, okay, you know what you see later on, that doesn't look like something that's in the cards for this girl. But then it just happens, all because of the death of Lincoln, all because of all these circumstances that she's been put through, all of these bad situations. But Rikers' situation though, it's complicated. He's pretty much conflicted there. He doesn't want to do the wrong thing, but he's got to. He couldn't do the right thing, because the right thing, letting Echo live, that would mean that his people would die, his family would die, and possibly a lot of innocents in the process as well. He tells her everything about it, like the guards are gonna protect the primes to their last breath. That means that a lot of innocents out there are gonna die. No matter how much we try to make this revolution peaceful, it's gonna turn violent, it's gonna be the end. So yeah, Riker is morally conflicted over here between what's actually right and wrong at the same time on one end of the continuum, and what is also right and wrong at the same time on the other end of the continuum. His life though and his conflict are over by the end of the episode. I don't really know why, and I'm not really comparing this to the masterpiece that is The Godfather. That's my favorite movie of all time. But I did think of Michael Corleone at the very beginning of The Godfather Part 1. You know, that's not me, Kay. That's my family. And then watching him later on, because of his father getting shot, all of that stuff, becoming the man that he becomes, becoming a killer, becoming a criminal, and becoming Don Corleone. Now, I haven't gotten much to say about Miller and Gaia on this episode, but I do believe one of these two is going to end up dead by the end of the season, just a gut feeling. On another note though, I did love the conversations that they had together, them working together. That was all so great on this episode. But I'm leaving best for last in my opinion, because my favorite character on the series happens to be John Murphy. And John Murphy does play a good role in this episode. John Murphy's kind of forced into a very dark place, into making a very dark decision. That dark decision has got to do with bringing back Josephine, but he's conflicted as well. He's not really doing this because he wants to, because he wants the immortality that Russell promises, but rather to save Amori's life. And he does promise Bellamy over there he's gonna make sure that Echo is safe. He's gonna do his best to make sure that she is safe. I did love the scene at the beginning of the episode. I did find it kind of funny as well. You know, when he gives a message to Echo, like this and that, and we're going to try to save you, we're working on it. And then he goes, act like you hate me. And then Echo goes, Murphy, you traitor. But here's one final thing though. A lot of characters have been absentees on this episode. You've got Abby, you've got Raven. Now on one hand, Abby's been annoying for the past couple of seasons, but Raven though, I do miss Raven when she's not around. She's well acted, well portrayed. The writing for her is always off the roof. The character is really amazing. So yeah, I did miss Raven. Hope we do see her on next week's episode. And speaking of characters we haven't seen on this episode, there's one we haven't seen in a while, that being Jordan. I'm definitely wondering where he's gone, what's going on with him. I'm pretty sure Priya is taking care of him after he saved her from Maddie. He took the staff for her. But I'm also almost certain he's going to have to play a role by the end of this season. He's just not going to spend the rest of this season sleeping somewhere in Sanctum. I do find it funny though that every one of them seems to have forgotten about him, like he does not exist anymore. No one is mentioning Jordan or asking, where's Jordan? But that having been said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode, what you think is gonna happen all the way to the end of the season. We're only one episode away from the end, and then it's the finale. Do let me know as well if you do have any theories when it comes to Diosa. Do you think Diosa is gonna make it back? Do you think she is still alive? Do you think that they might have actually killed her off screen? But you can let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel. Make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, the 100 or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review video, and have a great day.